Hello, my name is Bradley Emerson. I'm a ex-banker. I've been an educationist. I'm a university lecturer. I also have a company called Business Athletes where I do company restructuring, I do coaching. And the reason why I am making this video is to make sure that the people of this country understand where we are and why we have got to where we are and whether there is a light at the end of the tunnel. As a business person, if you look at the Sri Lankan economy, which is currently around 84 billion, is comparatively smaller than most of the businesses that are happening in the world. So if you look at Sri Lanka as a business, the Sri Lankan economy as a business, very simply, you have revenue streams, you have to manage expenses, and you must see what are the drivers of revenue streams. Now, since independence, it's been 76 years, and we have gone to the IMF 16 times. It was in 1952 that we went there for the first time. We have clearly indicated that we don't have the competency to run the economy. One of the main reasons why we have got is the professionals are not getting involved, they are not getting input, and they are not allowed to contribute. So let me make it very simple for you. If you look at this economy as a business, if you are to formulate strategy for recovery, and I have experience in doing that both internationally and locally, there are three questions you need to ask. Whether it is a business, whether it is economy. Three questions. There are countries who have failed economically, who have recovered and come back. The three important questions are, which we all learned when we did our MBAs. One is, where are we? Two, where do we want to go? And third most important thing is, how do we get there? Now, the biggest reason why strategies fail is you don't understand clearly where we are. Now, if you take Sri Lanka, to me, it became bankrupt a year ago. In my point of view, it was bankrupt 20 years ago. If you look at our history, our budgets have been negative. For more than 40 years, we have been making negative budgets. Our trade deficit has been high right through. We never had a trade surplus except for in 1978, which was maybe because of the policies of closed economy. Ever since, we have had deficits. How did we bridge the deficits? By borrowing after borrowing. On top of borrowing to bridge the gap, we also went and borrowed to run projects which are not paying back to the country. Now, if an organization, if I'm making an investment on a project, I must analyze the viability, I must analyze the payback, the return and the time of return. So none of these projects that we have done has been looked at that way, and none of them have contributed to the bottom line. I'll give you an example. 2 weeks ago, the British new parliament is presenting the budget. They have a 20 billion deficit, 20 billion pound deficit. And the government is saying that they're going to cut down on expenditure and they cut down and halt the projects. They are not talking about increasing taxes. They're not talking about borrowing. This is how a business should be run. This is how economies are run. What challenges do we have? Anybody who coming into power first must understand the current situation. Current situation is, we are bankrupt. We are in the mercy of the IMF. So anyone who is coming to power, first of all, must fulfill the obligations of the IMF. Top line, you can go to the website and find out what they are asking. The top line is revenue. They want tax revenue to go up to about 15% by 2028. Number two, they want to reduce corruption so that the revenue collection will be easy. They want to increase the growth rate to 5%. We are around 2.2% at the moment, GDP growth rate. 4, they want to make sure we have sustainable revenue to service our loans. Our loans become due on 2028, and then they have to provide a sustainable repayment plan. Now, I'm a banker. In the banking industry, when a loan goes bad, the client comes and tells, here is my revenue stream, so please give me a timeline to pay. Now, we are unable to restructure the loans because we can't give them a sustainable revenue stream, because we are not identifying what the revenue streams are. So that's the main reason why things have got deferred. Now we have got postponed to 2028, but the new government will have a challenge to show what is a sustainable revenue stream to pay the loans from 2028. If you can show sustainable revenue streams, I'm giving a banker's point of view. If I can give you sustainable revenue streams, you can renegotiate the terms of the settlement plan. That's what we do in a bank. You come and show them, you maintain it for 6 to 9 months, you can renegotiate the payment plans. So that's the key thing. So where do we get revenue from? What are Sri Lanka's revenue stream? It comes from taxes, it comes from customs, it comes from excise duty. So how do you sustain this? Right now, our tax collection is about 4 to 5% of GDP. How do you push it to 15%? We are taxing the taxpayer, the middle income people, and not the business people. The tax volume that need to come from is collection. There's a massive gap in the way we collect. The revenue streams are identified, but there are leaks. Take customs, there's corruption. Take income tax, there's corruption. Take excise duty, there is corruption. Very interesting. The number of bar licenses we are given have increased, and the revenue from excise has come down. So you can see where we are. So that's the first challenge any government that is coming in will have to put into place, is revenue collection. 2, our expense management. This year, we are already about 2 trillion rupees over the expense budget. There is no control. There is no financial discipline in this country. That is why we have gone down. There's a case study of Spain. How did they turn around? They cut down the expenditure and they sustain the family income. The way we are taxing our people, we are reducing the income base of the middle class. The middle class has shrunk. 600,000 people have left. So middle class is the most powerful segment of any economy. And if you reduce the spending power of the middle class, your economy will shrink. And it has shrunk. Right? So the challenges the new government, whoever comes in, have is how do I sustain the family income, the household income? Because economy, in simple terms, is spent. That is why in other countries, when the interest rate goes up, when inflation goes up, they debate because it will reduce the buying power. The moment buying power goes down, economy shrinks. That is why from 2018, from 94 billion, we have cut down to 84 billion, almost 10% interest has been shrunk. The other indicator is poverty. If you look at our pawning base, I'm talking about bank numbers. I'm not talking about the non-financial institute that take pawning. In the banking sector, in 2019, the total loan portfolio was about 250 million. At that time, 9% of the population was below poverty line. Today, the pawning loan portfolio has gone up, only in the banks, to 850 million. So it has gone up almost by 3.5 to 4 times. And correspondingly, 25% of Sri Lanka's population is living below poverty line. So what happened in the last 4 years? Although we say we have sustained the economy, the poverty line has increased. And how have we sustained the economy? Yes, we are happy about gas being there, we are happy about petrol being there, we are happy about food being available. I don't want to talk about the health sector, that's a different story altogether. But how are we doing this? By not paying the loans. We currently have about 5.4 billion reserves that have gone up, yes. But that doesn't make me rich. I have the reserve because I haven't paid the loan. So you can't sustain this model. So people must be realistic to understand what you are seeing is only a bubble. It is not really a climb, right? So that's one. The second point I want to talk about is revenue streams. Now, every economy or every business for that matter need to have a revenue stream. And you also must understand what are the drivers of those revenue streams. Now, if you look at the distribution, we have, let's say, 8% in agriculture, roughly about 32% in manufacturing, and about 60% in service industry. Now, including tourism. If these are the main revenue streams, the drivers of our economy, there has to be a plan to sustain that and improve if you want to grow the economy. IMF is expecting us to grow the economy by 5.5% by 2025, which means these sectors must have a plan to grow. And there is no concerted effort to grow these sectors. I'll give you a simple example. Now we are happy about tourism arrival. Yes, up to July, we have got about 1.2 million arrivals. And this 1.2 million arrivals has given us about 1.5 billion revenue. Now please compare this with the global statistics. Globally, they're expecting a tourism movement of 1.5 billion number of tourists. And the revenue is 9.4 billion. Look at the equation. It's about 6 times per tourist. Now, if you are talking about mere numbers and be happy about clapping your hands and tapping your back and say we are happy, but what you need to be looking at is the revenue. So the challenge is, how do I increase the revenue? It's a different topic altogether. Tourism industry has moved away. If you want to increase the spend, then you must better your offering. So that's another equation to look at. We are just happy about the arrivals. And the way we touch the arrivals is also questionable. So we look at every arrival as a tourist. It is not. World Bank people would have come to Sri Lanka many times. Recently, Iran, the late president of Iran came in. All who came with him, you would have counted them as tourists. These are not real tourists. So you got to look at the real numbers and look at the corresponding revenue. Only way you can increase the revenue is giving the offering. 30% of tourists travel with families. What is our offering? If you don't have an offering, how will you increase the spend? So don't get carried away by just numbers. Numbers must end up in revenue. 1,100 tourists has given us only 1.5 billion, whereas the equation in the world is 1:6. So if you don't get there, if you don't have a strategy to get there, these will be mere numbers and we will think we are performing, but we are not. The other piece is talent. Every economy is sustained only at the rate at which we supply relevant talent. Now, if you look at our education system, we are producing labor. We are not producing talent. That is why we have graduates who are unemployed. The streams that we are teaching in schools are not really aligned to what the future wants. We are teaching the same thing that we taught the last 40 years, whereas the market is asking for different talent. If you go this way, number one, investments won't come because you cannot recover economy by taking loans. You need to bring in investment. Economies are recovered by creating jobs, not by giving jobs. To create jobs, you must have talent that is relevant to the future of the market. That is why if you listen to the outgoing Prime Minister's speech in Singapore, he was saying they have degree programs on esports. That's the future. And we are not even looking at what the future wants. So if I summarize, the challenges that you face as an incoming government, you're looking at a business that is bankrupt. You're looking at a business that has debt obligation to the donors. You're looking at a business that has numbers and not revenue. You're looking at a business that has a short supply of talent. You're looking at a business that has not invested in the economic drivers. So where should we go from here? We need to look at people who can actually give a plan to address these gaps, who can actually give a strategy. Strategy in very simple terms is knowing what to do and how to go somewhere. But you must know very clearly where you are and where you want to go in the short term, in the long term. You don't need to wait till 2048 to turn around this country. This country is blessed with enormous amount of resources. It is just that, not that they are not put into good use, they have been misused. So if you can correct those, we can be proud that our level, our vintage, our generation has done something different to make the future for the children of this country. Thank you for listening.